In this episode of the Big Picture Skiing podcast, you'll meet Josh Duncan-Smith. Josh is a British citizen, but actually spends a lot of time all around the world, as you'll find out. And what's interesting, really interesting about this episode is Josh talks about stepping stones. And so how he has met some really influential masters, some gurus of skiing, and how these people, each of them have given him something different and just at the right time to help him step, progress, keep moving forward in his quest to become a real master of skiing himself. And I really admire this about Josh and think it's like a great trait and quality in any person that is in the pursuit of mastering their own sport. So I think it's a really enjoyable listen. Josh shares all these sort of people he meets along the way, and you'll recognize a lot of the names he mentions. And I hope at the end of this you also perhaps get some ideas on how you can take your skiing and mastering this sport to the next level. And it's seeking out a coach or seeking out these people, these experts, that is really going to open these doors and allow you to take steps towards that goal. Enjoy this inspiring episode, and also please check out Josh and Harry, his business partner, their website, theskico.it. It's just something they've started, and I think it'd be great if you're looking to take your skiing to the next level. I think joining these guys for a week or 2 weeks on one of their camps would be such a great step. And you'll be able to learn all the things that Josh has learned through meeting all these absolute legends of the sport. Okay, let's get into the episode with Josh Duncan-Smith. Hey, so I'm here with Josh Duncan-Smith, and Josh is tuning in from Italy, Sestriere, and it's great to have him. I'm interested first because I got Josh on, really the main reason was to ask him about stepping stones, or the process he's gone through to get better at skiing and seeking out masters, I would call like real gurus of the sport. But before we get to that part, Josh, what's the latest? What's news? It's the start of season. Give us an update. What you're doing.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tom. So right now I'm in Italy, and we're myself, Harry McFadden, and Lena Peraldo. We've started up a business called the Skico. And we franchised the Rookie Academy from New Zealand. So we've brought it over to Europe and based in Italy. And really, we're just pushing to get that off the ground and get people to come out and ski with us during these challenging COVID times. So I'm really right now just focusing a lot of my energy on that and having a great time skiing here. I mean, it's weird. Last season I was in Switzerland when COVID was popping off, Northern Hemisphere, and it's the same here in Italy. Is Monday to Friday, there's no one skiing, so you have literally the entire resort to yourself, and it's incredible. And then on the weekends, it's mad. You've got everyone is all the locals, everyone around the area is all coming up and going skiing. So Monday to Friday is just beautiful. You've got the whole place to yourself. The weekend gets a bit chaotic. So just trying to get the business off the ground and ski as much as I can, really.
How long have you been skiing for already?
So I left New Zealand in October and came over to Italy for a little bit. And then we went to Austria to do 3 weeks of race training on the glaciers in Gittsteinhorn. We managed to get 2 weeks of training in, and then essentially the regional government in Austria kicked all the tourists out because the vaccination rates in Austria at that point were a little lower. And so the hospitals were starting to get a little bit overrun and in the Salzburg region. And so they essentially shut skiing for 1 day, kicked all the tourists out, and then reopened the mountain for the locals. Which, hey, I mean, fair enough. If that's what they want to do, that's their prerogative.
Yep.
But we got 2 weeks of training in there, and then just been back in Italy, and thankfully the western side of the Alps, it's been a fantastic start to the winter. There's been a lot of snow, and
I saw you posted some powder skiing. That's just like recently, that powder skiing footage.
Yeah, that was just over a week ago. Yeah,
wow.
just about a week ago. So it snowed, I mean, must be about a meter or so in that storm. And it was literally like full Japan, like full. I mean, like, yeah, you could pick the snow up and blow it out of your hands, and light snow, deep, and it was just full Japan. It was beautiful.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm going to get into the racing, ask you about the racing a little bit later, and also want to get into asking you, now you get to run your own programs with the Ski Co. Like, how do you want to run it? Because you're not running anyone else's thing. It's like, say you get 5 people, how do you want to make them really good? So I'm interested in hearing that. But first of all, we rewind the clock. Like, I remember meeting you at Threadbow, and I can't remember what year that was, but you could already tell there was this guy who was super driven to become the best skier he could be. And from that moment on, I've seen you seek out people like JF Bulliot, Takao, Riley, Paul Lorenz, and these people are friends of yours now, and other people that we can chat about. Can you start first with, like, is that just something you do? Because you also play golf. Like, do you have the same kind of like, right, I'm just going to go to the best source I can, not dilly-dally around? Like, is that something you do in all sports? And then 2, maybe you want to start with like why you sought out the first person in this sort of stepping stone approach.
Yeah. I think if I look at that question, I take it back a little bit. Like, I played competitive tennis when I was coming through school. This is before I got into skiing, really. I remember for me, I love being inspired. And I remember watching my dad showing me Roger Federer. And I mean, Roger Federer is arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tennis player of all time. But I remember just watching him play and feeling so inspired. And then I tried to model my game, like the way I played, off him. And so when I got into the ski scene and got into teaching skiing, I didn't really have a great understanding of World Cup races at that point, and how the season ran, and who the top guys were. So the people I met and who I was inspired by were ski instructors. And like, I remember that season distinctly in Threadbow, seeing it was yourself, Paul, and Riley. And I remember we had a training session on a really cold day, and everyone was freezing, and you taught us how to do space turns. And I remember it was just, I was like, oh man, this is so, this warmed us up. And it was just this different way. I mean, no one had shown me what a space turn was, and so, and I was a level 2 at this point. And so it was, it was just this a different approach, this new thing. And it sort of got me thinking, oh, okay, like drills, exercises, like what can you do here? And then Riley McGlashan taught me how to do, I'm going to say, like a proper short turn. And I remember one thing he said, he just said, I was in a pair of full tilt boots, right? So, and they were a size too big. And that season I actually got like a proper 4-buckle boot on Riley's recommendation. And Riley, he told me the simplest thing. He was like, what do you feel inside your foot and when you ski? And I was like, oh, I don't know. So I tried to figure it out. I was like, oh, I sort of just feel my foot. Didn't really have a direct, approach. And Riley was like, when you get through, as you go through the turn, try to feel your heel. And it just made such a difference because I had like this sort of focus point to go to. And so I think for me, that's the thing. It's like I've found people who, like, be it Roger Federer or Riley, Paul, yourself, when I was in Threadbow, who were better than me. And I watch them and I try and emulate them. And then I've, as you said, I've had the sort of privilege to work alongside people. And so I've been able to ask them questions to sort of help the process along.
Because did you go after that season? Did you went to Canada? Because you were you're doing your level 4, right? Your CSIA
3, yeah,
right. But that's your goal was level 4 CSIA. Mm-hmm. So you went. So then after that, did you get to work with JF then, or was it not until he came to New Zealand?
Yeah, not until I came to. So after Threadbow, I went to Canada, and I again had some people I was inspired by. But at that point, I remember there was one video that changed my life, and it was a slow motion video of Ted Ligety skiing this pitch of Solden. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, I think
that music.
Yeah. That music. I remember that music. Yeah. It, makes me feel nostalgic when I hear it. But I remember watching that video, and I was training for my level 3 at this point, and seeing the way Ted moved inside the turn and the amount of edge angle he was able to cut. I mean, he was basically like lying down on one left footer. He came out over the roll, lying down on the left, and he had created so much performance that he exploded out of that turn, went up, lost ski snow contact, and landed on the snow, let the skis sort of track forward, created just as much angle, and he was back into it. And I remember watching that video, and that spurred me on. So I pushed my skiing as hard as I could that season to try and be like Ted, and passed the level 3 skiing, but failed the level 3 teaching. Because I just hadn't trained my teaching. I hadn't thought about the intricacies of what a good lesson is and how to do it. And so I then went to New Zealand the following year, Southern Hemisphere season.
Yeah.
And passed the New Zealand level 3 down there. And at this point, still hadn't skied with JF, but I had the head trainer at Cadrona. He's still there. His name is Dave Taylor. He's a Scottish guy who has a family, lives in New Zealand. He probably had one of the biggest impacts on me in terms of how to be a professional in the industry, like how to train and how to better myself. And so, like, I can take it back to even sort of finding figureheads and people. Like when I was in school, I was really bad at maths. And then I found this one teacher who was also the rugby coach. And he had probably the biggest impact on my schooling career. He sort of like taught me how to revise and how to study, and got me through my GCSEs in maths for sure. And it's the same with DT when I was at Cadrona, like just sort of inspired me in such a way to take real ownership of how to be the best that I can be, how to be better, and turn skiing into a career. And then I went back to Whistler with that mindset and that approach, and I skied with 2 trainers, a guy called Otto Kamstra and Russ, and passed the Canadian level 4 that season on the first go. And I honestly put it all down to the approach and the mindset I got from DT and that season. Yeah, and that season, because I guess with me, I think if you ask my mum this, she'd say, I can be quite stubborn, but if I'm properly motivated to do something, I give it everything. And I think now in my life, I have the ability to but I'm 29 now. So I think now in my life, I have the ability to motivate myself. But honestly, when I was going through the, levels, instructor levels, I needed to have that come from someone. And I think I got that from DT, and then I got that from Russ and Otto in Whistler. And then that next year I came back to New Zealand. I was a full cert in two countries, and I thought I was all that, and hot shot. And then I met JF, and I think, and we talked about this just before, but I think at each point in my career, I've met the right person at the right time. They've inspired me and sort of helped motivate me, and then I've run with it. Like I've taken it as far as I could. So I remember paying to go and train with JF with two guys. There was John Gass, Ali McGrain, and myself, and we paid Dean and Garrett at the Rookie Academy to train for 2 days with JF. And I remember just being blown away by the way he trained, the way he talked about skiing. I mean, you've skied with JF, in his sort of French Canadian accent, when he's talking about ski in suspension, we must a foot placement through the turn. Like it's poetry. Like when he speaks about skiing, it's like it's poetry. And he told me, he said, you ski like I did years ago. You lift the foot, you come up. Remember, don't waste energy up. And I was like, oh my God, it was like, he opened the door, because it was like, okay, you're a full cert now. That's great.
Yep.
Now really explore skiing. Like, look at how you can create more performance and move beyond sort of instructor qualifications. And so through that training with him, what I took away was obviously don't pop up so much, but it was also, there's a world beyond qualifications. And so at that point, it sort of spurred me on, right, who else can I find? Who else is out there who is pushing skiing and instructor skiing like JF is? And so that sort of brought me back around to Paul Lorenz and Riley McGlashan, who I'd met in Threadbow, and so had a relationship with them. And then I remember getting to ski with Riley, not Paul at this point, but with Riley in New Zealand that following year. And again, it's just one of the, like, I reconnected with Riley, I guess you could say. We sort of rekindled a friendship in New Zealand. And at that point, it was, I mean, this is before Riley had anything going on with his hip. And I mean, he was skiing at a level, I mean, it's just out of this world. I don't think I ever saw
destroying
Riley
the mountain.
I don't think I ever saw him make a mistake. Do you know what I mean? Like, not even like, I think the most.
Or if he did, it was like the coolest it was a trick. It wasn't a mistake. It was the coolest trick. Yeah.
So he, and at that point it was, I mean, and he's incredibly knowledgeable. So I was just picking his brain all winter, but really just watching. I was just watching and being inspired. And it was sort of like learning to ski a different style, like I had my, I guess, classical sort of instructor short turns. And I mean, carving, always you're trying to ski like Ted. I think for years, everyone was trying to ski like Ted when it came to long turns. It was just how much edge angle can you get? Like, how far can you move in? And, but I remember watching Riley do short turns, and I'm like, and bumps. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's different. Again, door opened. It's like, why do you have to ski a certain way? Why can you not have, like, why can you not have more clubs in your bag? Like more different styles of short turn, or, different techniques for different situations, like in your bag. And so the door that opened to me there was not only for JF, it was there's a world beyond levels, go find it. With Riley, it was like, there are different ways to do this. And, you know, depends how you want to look at it, not right or wrong. It's just, there are different ways to do this. And Riley's open-mindedness, and I've got this from him over the years. You know, Riley and I are good friends now, and that's one of the things about Riley that I admire the most, is how open-minded he is to skiing and his approach and what he's looking for. And definitely that was sort of the door. It's like he opened it up, like, there are different ways to do this. Go explore, like, go and try different ways.
I can remember like skiing, like training a lot with Riley and Threadbow. And one season in particular, I was like, I'm going to get better at short turns, and Riley's the man. And I can remember him telling me that he feels when he makes a short turn well, it's like a heel push and a hip dump. And what is really funny is, you and I both know, as many instructors, those two things are meant to be a bad feedback. Yeah. Don't heel push and don't dump your hip. And he's like, but that's what I feel I'm doing. And so it was cool. I was like, I'm going to trust this, do that. And of course, like, it doesn't end up being the same heel push and hip dump as, say, you know, an examiner or whatever is looking at and describing. But it's so funny that, like, that feeling and taking that, like, that just goes with what you're saying about Riley being open-minded. And he's like, I don't really tell anyone this because they'd tell me, you're trying to teach people to ski bad, or, you know what I mean? So he keeps quite quiet. Like, that's really, he's quite humble, and just like, if people ask him for info, he'll say it. But he's not out there like ramming down doors saying, do it this way.
No, totally. There was, so I'd say there were two people. Oh no, I mean, DT is in there, he's the third, but I would say the two people who have provoked my thought process about skiing at this point in my career the most was Riley, and then also Jonathan Ballou. So Jonathan was, he did back-to-back winters for a long time. Now he just resides in Aspen. I think if he can come to New Zealand again, he will, but he was a senior examiner with the NZSIA, which is sort of the instructor organization I'm mostly involved with now. And Jonathan ran technical indoor evening sessions. And this is when I was training for my level 3, and then the years beyond that, he did it as well. And I remember Jonathan saying to me, and it always stick with me, is he said, let's challenge our beliefs. Like, within this room, within this sort of space of people we have, like, let's challenge our beliefs and let's expand how we understand skiing. And Jonathan is incredibly bright and very studious. You know, he loves to study and understand more. He's got a thirst for knowledge, and it's very admirable and part of why he's so inspiring. And so I remember at that point in time, like, I was getting this information from Jonathan, like, challenge your beliefs, you know, don't see just one turn, try and see more, open your mind. And then a couple of years later, I was talking with Riley, still trying to challenge my beliefs. And I remember Riley said to me, I don't teach, if beyond a beginner, or I'm pretty sure he even said, actually, he was like, I don't teach like leg rotation, like a rotation of the ski. He's like, I believe it differently. I teach it differently. And I remember when Riley said that, I was like, I am definitely challenging my beliefs now. This is so out there compared to what you've been, you know, that pedigree of ski instructor pathway that you get brought up on. And so for sure, I mean, I got that from Jonathan, and I definitely got that from Riley, of like, just challenge your beliefs, understand skiing for what it is. And definitely, I mean, that both of them in that regard spurred me on, opened the door, you know.
Yep. And then so you did some skiing, so that's New Zealand, Riley. who came along next? Did you get to, was it probably Takao was the next maybe influence, or Richie, or?
Yeah, so at the next point in my career, at this point I left Whistler, and I moved to Japan, and I worked for Paul Lorenz at Niseko Base Snow Sports, NBS, when he was still the ski school director there. And so this now enter the, I guess, figureheads inspires masters of sport, now enter Paul Lorenz. And again, I met Paulie in Threadbow, but when I went to work for him, sort of rekindled a friendship, and we just got together again and became friends, like better friends. And Paulie at this point was doing the technical competitions in Japan. And so the inspiration for me, the opening of the door at this point that I got from Paulie was Japan, and the technique and the way that the Japanese look at technical skiing and the whole, competition scene and what's going on there. And I remember sitting in a gondola with Riley, Paul, Cass Skonen, Benji, I think James Wilkins was in there. And my poles were like 2 handles higher than everyone else's in the gondola, because we're sitting there, with our poles, and skis are outside. And I remember looking around like, I've got long poles, and everyone was like, oh yeah, mate, out in Japan, you got to chop them down, technical competition pole. And so I was like, okay, wow, all right. So, I think at that point, even I was like a 115. So I had chopped down. But I think, and that season I went to a 110 in my pole length, because I was like, right, I mean, why do I need long poles? I'm not pushing out the start gate, racing. I don't need to lean on them. I need the poles for a purpose, and that's to ski with more performance on soft snow, trying to sort of emulate the Japanese guys. And so that, through Paulie, that season, definitely it opened me up to really a different way of performing, and that was in like technical competitions, and that was really eye-opening, because I did the competition that year. My goal was to make the cut, right? So after day one, there's I think there's about 300 male competitors in the Hokkaido state competition, or maybe 250. And after the first day, they cut about 100 to 150 competitors a cut, because their scores aren't high enough. And so my goal was just to make the cut, and I did. And I remember standing at the top of the bumps line on day 2 with Riley. Riley and I think I was bib 134 on day 2, and I think Riley was like 130. And they just ran in numerical order on the bumps. And I remember seeing these Japanese guys. I mean, this is West Tiger. To give you an example, if you've skied Whistler, it's like the saddle. So you come over the roll. It's like the sort of saddle, that steep slope. If you've skied in Japan, in Hokkaido, it would be Tiger. In Verbier, it's sort of the steep black on the Nonda side. Just trying to give a bit of reference.
It's a steep run. Slopes.
Steep run. And I remember Riley and I were there, and we just saw people, skating into this zipper line. There were 3 zipper lines, and they were just pushing in, bang, bang, bang. A couple of guys would just go like bang, bang, and explode everywhere. They were giving it everything. And you would see, some of them were just wizards. Absolute wizards at skiing these deep, round bump lines. And I remember Riley looked at me, and I looked at Riley, and I was like, man, I've got to work tomorrow. I'm like, I can't kill myself down here. And Riley was like, I know. He's like, I've got a 10-day booking starting tomorrow. And so Riley and I both, Riley skied it better than I did, but I just sort of like putted down, I just skied a very round line and just tried to avoid the holes and just not kill myself. And I just remember that instance being like, wow, these guys are pushing it. Like they really are trying to push their skiing. And so I stayed and taught in Japan for another 3 seasons after that. I did the technical competition twice, and both times was just immensely inspired by everyone in that scene, and trained really hard to try and do better. The second time I did the competition, I wanted to be in the top 50, and I did. I came 45th that year, and I think Paul and I were the only 2 guys to make the cut, because Riley didn't do it. I think I came 45th, and I think Paulie came like 38th. That was the year Paulie had that video as like Spider-Man versus the Hulk thing. Some people might have seen that, because I was wearing red and blue and he had the green. And so that was fun, because Paulie and I sort of made, like, we weren't really going to make the cut to make the finals. They don't allow, or they haven't allowed foreigners to make the state cut, to represent Hokkaido at the nationals. Paulie has been the closest. I think he's missed out by, like 1 or 2 spots. So I think there's probably a bit of a, I don't know, politics, a bit of political controversy there as to really, but anyway, it is what it is. And and again, that was incredibly inspiring, because at this point now, I had skied, as you mentioned, in those 4 years. I skied with Takao Maruyama, both in New Zealand and in Japan. And I know that you'll say this.
So, like, for a bit of perspective, the competitions you're talking about, the national Japanese one, I don't know how many times Takao Maruyama has won it, but it's
4.
Yeah,
I think 4.
So
I think 4.
Like, he's been considered the best technical skier in all of Japan at least 4 times.
Yeah.
So this guy's up there.
Yeah.
So you now get to ski with him. What do you get from Takao?
And firstly, I said, and I know you agree with this as well, Tom, is Takao's one of the nicest men I've met. He's just he is a great guy, like just an absolute gentleman, and just a really sweet man. Like, he's really caring and compassionate, and just engaging. Like, he'll talk with you about skiing as long as you want. He loves it just as much as we do. And so I've sort of had inspiring figures who at certain points have opened doors to me. What I got from Takao was, firstly, it was inspiration just through watching him, because I have videos of Takao saved on my phone, and he was actually nice enough. He actually gave me some training videos of his, because I said, "Oh, Takao, what are you working on in your skiing?" This is when we were in New Zealand. And he actually goes, "Oh, I'm trying to change my short turn for the comp." And so he's given me some videos. And so firstly, it's really been just blown away by the beauty in his skiing. Like, he said to me when I first started skiing with him that he tries to be powerful but elegant. And I think part of that elegance is really to do with how soft the snow is in Japan. Like, you can't grunt. Like, you watch some World Cup racers who are incredibly powerful because of the ice that they're skiing on, and just the difficulty of the slope. It can be grunty at times, big stivet, hit the edge hard, get off the edge as fast as you can. And it can be a little more grunty. I think because of the texture of the snow and how soft it is, I think he has to be elegant. He has to have a lot more touch on the snow, because if you push down on it, I mean, you just bury the ski. And so I remember just watching him being like, right, he told me that he wants to be elegant. I'm like, you are the most elegant skier I've ever seen. I mean, it's madness. Every movement he makes is it's like a dance. I mean, every movement
Yeah.
he makes is choreographed to perfection, and it's to create a performance. I mean, he does generate insane ski performance. You know, like I've seen him just be like Ted. I mean, like completely upside down, coming down Main Street, which is the main run down to the base of Treble Cone, just like upside down on his, I think he's got a 25 or 23 meter like long turn competition ski. He's just like upside down on it, you know.
Yeah.
And so he generates such performance. But when it came to training with him, what I got really was, it was accuracy. It was, I think the biggest thing, I mean, I definitely got a lot out of my own skiing from him, you know, how
Like
to
what
transition.
would you say? Because do you remember that training session he did, where like Jazz Bruce
With
was there,
rookies.
and yeah, with
Yeah.
rookies early season, and I remember you, Riley, and I were there at the bottom of Main Street. Like the session was over, where they're like hammering Tack out for more,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you and Riley and you were there asking him, so where exactly are you pointing your pelvis? And because remember
Yeah.
he was like talking about like a turntable. Do you
Yep.
remember, like
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
like so
I
there's the pelvis
that
being
was,
like on a turntable on the hip. So
yeah.
like don't like I feel that unlocked something for me
Mhm.
literally that day.
Yeah, that was, I definitely remember that session. I've got video of that actually. I think you did film the whole thing, and so we got that turntable bit on video. But I think with my own ski performance, I think with Takao, it's two things. I'll finish the accuracy point, and then I'll come to what you just mentioned
Mm-hmm.
there. But I've learned a lot how to train, like how to be a leader and a trainer from him, in just how to be really accurate with what you want your students to do, and you know, take your time, be a gentleman, all of that. But really, like the way he teaches is beautiful. I mean, I've for rookies, I've had to edit like training video. Like I film, you know, Takao, Seb Michelle, Riley, whoever. I think it's mainly been those two, but their training runs, training sessions, and I've had to like chop and piece it together
Editor.
and put a, yeah, edit a video for rookie YouTube. And when I edited Takao's, and this is not taking away from anyone else I've ever filmed,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the easiest thing I've ever edited that hasn't
I
been
know
my
exactly
own
what you
content.
mean.
That hasn't been my own content. Every piece of information he said linked on from the net from the previous, and it all just it all fits into line.
And this
And
is him speaking English, which is
English, yes, second
he's
language,
getting
yeah,
better at it, but
yeah,
it's not, doesn't come easy.
yeah. So so that was, when I say accuracy, that's what I mean. It's like when I've trained with him, and again, this is not taking away from anyone else I've skied with, they're all incredible trainers. It was just, maybe it was because he was a second language, but it's just so to the point and so sort of like succinct. This is what needs to happen, and then he gives demos that show exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah. He does
And
exactly what he says. It's not like, I
yeah,
think I see what he's talking about. You see it.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember at Interski, the Interski I've been to in Bulgaria, um I think we at the NZSA had a real decent show on R1. We had about like, I think 60 people came along. I think had maybe like 70, 80 people came along. I literally think the whole of Interski came to Takao's clinic.
Check out.
He had like 150 people there, you know, all just want, because I mean, at this point now, you know, with social media and everything, like the Japanese ski technique was causing controversy in some circles and inspiring others. And but anyway, there was a lot of discussion around it. There was a lot of like, who is Takao Maruyama? What does he do? You know, and I think he literally had like 150 people at his clinic, and he said he had a translator there, and he said at the beginning, he's like, I'm going to try this in English, And it was like, mate, like awesome, go for it. And it was just so to the point, you know, with all of those people there, it was so accurate with what the Japanese methodology was and how they wanted to demo it. And so that's the accuracy I've gotten from him at that point in time when I started training with him in my career. And in terms of ski performance, the turntable thing you're talking about, for me, he was talking about allowing the hip or the pelvis essentially to like rotate into the turn to help with the, you know, with the creation of edge angle. And at that point, it was definitely lost on me a little bit, you know, how to make it happen. And then I'd honestly say in the last 2 years, like sort of New Zealand season just gone, the Northern Hemisphere season, and the Southern before that, it clicked for me. And I was like,
And was it a feeling too? You got this.
Yeah.
It was powerful, like very strong on the top of the turn.
Yeah. And particularly in short turns.
Yeah.
Like particularly in short turns. And in long turns, I think, you know, for me right now, I've been this way for a while. I'm just trying to really be as aligned as I can to manage the load and the force that I want to generate. So for me, through long turns, it's really working through phases of alignment, and I've been with that for a while. I mean, the hip move, the hip roll is there a little bit, but not as much as it is in the short turn. And I skied in Switzerland last year with a guy called Jamie Kagan. So he's the head of education for IASI, and he's a Canadian level 4. And
do you know, I used to work with Jamie
Irish
at Silver Star. He and I used to go to the pub together, and yeah, it's funny. Yeah, the same people are staying like in the industry, you know. And so you skied with Jamie, sorry.
Yeah, so we were in. So I was in Switzerland, and I wasn't working last season. We were just sort of investing in the ski-co, in the building of the company, creating content, that type of stuff. But Jamie runs ES Nonda, so he's based there, and we were living in Nonda. And I hadn't met him before. Got to meet him. Incredible guy, really, really, really lovely man, and great skier. But I remember we were doing some training together one day, and I've been really trying to work on this in my short turns because I was trying to create sort of as much early edge as I can. And I mean, as we know, you know, if you hold the hip back and you just try and rotate the, you know, the femurs, the leg, there's so much you could get. But if you allow the hip to rotate with it, you can just create more. And I was explaining this to Jamie, and Jamie was like, oh, he's like, that's different. He's like, I've seen it in skiing, but it's interesting to talk with someone who's really an advocate for it.
Yep.
And Jamie said, let me, you know, we've been training a little bit together, and Jamie said, let me follow you. And I was like, sure. So I did some short turns down the main pitch into Nonda, and Jamie got to the bottom, and he was like, he's like, I can see it now, because you can sort of, he's like, I could see it from the back, essentially.
It's easy, definitely easy to see from the back.
Yeah. So it's like through transition. And I think Jamie's trying to work on that in his skiing. I think that's what he said.
I must say, I did see his skiing the other day, just because he posted some stuff, and I was like, something's changing. And you know what's, like, for want of a better word, it's smoother, because I think that like the hip roll, what Takao sort of introduced us to, well, first of all, I would say that was definitely one of those things that if it didn't come from someone like him, you would think someone's trying to teach you to rotate your upper body. We're, and again, another like, no, like you're all through your ski career, you're trying to not rotate your hip, you know, instructors will know this. And so Takao is saying, rotate. And that's funny. It's like the Riley heel push hip dump. I hear this, I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm in, you know, but you know, like, I think it's just interesting that those things have led to really opening up people's skiing. It's just, and again, it's an interpretation of like when you do it, I think is really important, right? Because I think when people get stung for it, it's a different time, and they're also not really focused on edging as a result of the hip rotation, and the hip rotation thing is an edging thing. So yeah, and what was the other thing I wanted to point out was, like you said, it was like 2 years. And I just think like something is really important in that, because a lot of people say, like, Jamie has been given this like, new thing. And he's like an interski level skier. He's not just got it. And I think it's just a good message that, we all like, it takes years. And what I think people do is they just drop it because they're maybe not getting results. Maybe that's part of what you've learned, is like, get something. And if the season is literally just that, that's what you need to do. Would that be fair to say?
Mate, 100%. I mean, I think, so a couple of things on that. I think one is the timing. So like, I've met these figureheads, and I think there's still one we will talk about, which is Richie Berger, who came last. But I've met these people at certain points in my career. Like, to get me to full cert, I met DT, and he showed me how to be a professional and how to train. And then I met JF, and he showed me that there was a world beyond qualifications. And then I reconnected with Riley, and he opened my mind to all types of skiing, right? Then I reconnected with Paulie, and he opened me up to, this world of competition in Japan. And then from that, with rookies as well, met Takao, and he basically, it's on the same level of like, he showed me how to be a better trainer and gave me information to create more ski performance and push my skiing further in this sort of hip alignment world. And so I think the timing of when you hear information, when you get it, is really crucial. For me, I was lucky enough to have these doors opened at the right time, so I could just walk straight through them. But with that, as on your point of taking 2 years to get a click or to feel it, is you have to be obsessed. Like, I'm truly obsessed with skiing. Like, I love I love trying to master it, I literally yesterday, because I'm out here trying to do some sort of race stuff for some qualifications still to do in Europe. And so I'm only skiing on my GS skis at the moment. I've got a 25-meter GS and a 23-meter GS. And just yesterday, I went out with Harry and we were filming, and I've got one run out of the whole day. I've got one run that stands out to me that I like, and it's just, I'm obsessed with it. Like, I'm looking at those videos and I'm like, okay, here's that one run, and on that run, here are 2 turns that I link together. This is what I'm trying to do when I'm, performing a long radius carve turn.
Yeah, out of hundreds of turns.
Yeah.
And I think that's so crucial. Like, at this point, you're looking for that little bit of a sniff of like, I can change, improve. There it was. And yeah, I would totally agree that you see it and you just like watch it, and it sinks into like exactly what you've done differently to before, and you're really trying to hold on to that. And I think it's amazing today with video and phone. Like, it's you can accelerate things, I think, faster than possibly what it could be like back, 20 years ago, for sure.
Like,
and what were the things you liked in those long turns? What is it?
Essentially, it's just the way in which I move in. So I've got a new, like, the cue I'm working on myself with right now is connect to particularly my right foot, but I mean both feet. Connect to the foot, so like connect to the outside foot, and then release the hip. So that's my little
In a
cue.
sequence.
Yeah, in a sequence. So through transition, it's connect to the new outside foot and then release the hip. Now I was working through that sequence, different wording in New Zealand this summer, but when I came to Italy, there's just the instructores, so like the Italian trainers, are just beautiful on-piste skiers. Just really, really great skiers. There's one guy in particular who I know, his name's Jack Demmer. And he was I just asked him, I'm always asking people, I'm like, so what are you working on? What are you thinking about in your skiing? And because on day one, I'll just say, like, we were skiing and it was a bit icy, when I skied with him this season earlier. And there was over this pitch. I came in, skied the pitch, but it was a bit slick. So I had to give a little bit of a skid to the ski and then find the edge of it later and sort of work the pitch that way. Jack came down and made it look like it was, midwinter piste. And he just demolished the slope. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, right, okay, I need to do that now. So I was chatting to him and he said to me, he said, it all starts with connecting to the foot. He's like, it all starts with the outside foot. He's like, if I need to get on that outside foot earlier. And the Italians have a slightly different style to, I say, what I do. They're a bit more up and over classical than what I am. But Jack was saying, he's like, it's all about connecting to the foot. And it got me thinking about, just that conversation got me thinking about, like, how do we pressure the outside ski? Or not necessarily how, but how do people perceive pressure to the outside ski? Because you hear a lot of World Cup racers talk about you got to press on it. Like they'll say, like I've heard Ted say before, he's like, once you find it, he's like, you've got to literally like push as hard as you can into the outside ski to try and generate, force. I've heard when I've spoken to Alice Robinson, she's talked about that. And someone like Jack, the way he was explaining it, now his English is second language, the way he was explaining it to me, it seemed like it was more of a purposeful force application. And that's not necessarily what I've thought about over the years. Like, I've thought about a connection to it, but essentially like being balanced on it without a doubt as early as you can, but allowing pressure and force to build to the outside ski, not try and push it away. Because if you haven't created edge angle, like enough edge angle, some platform angle to let the ski will hold, then essentially when you push, the outside ski will slip away, right? Like I teach people, you don't want to push on the ski, because if they're not balanced on it, they're literally going to make a wedge, right? They're going to stem the foot away. But talking to Jack this season, it just got me thinking about like the magnitude of internal force you want to be applying to the outside ski as early as you can, as Jack put it. And so that's where I've rebranded in my mind my sort of, I guess, mantra or phrase of training. So connect to the outside ski and then release the hip. And so I'm playing around now in these long turns. I think I did it with just the amount of like pressure I'm trying to apply, not that I'm receiving back from the snow, but the amount of sort of force to the outside ski I'm trying to apply. And then once I have that connection, I then release the hip and, move in and at the same time shorten the inside leg.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Very cool. And like, I get what you mean with that, because I guess it's the kind of people we work with on most occasions. We're not working with Alice Robinson, so we're probably shying away from those kind of cues, which leads into us doing the same thing and demonstrating in our own skiing the same way. But it's cool. You're again finding another one of those like things that's like, I need to like
Yeah.
explore this, and that's exactly what you're doing. And through hundreds of turns, you got two that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like,
exactly.
that you
100%
like the outcome
got
of.
two. Yeah, that I'm doing it.
And
You
do you
know,
reckon
and
you,
this
so,
is
so then do you think you can see it? How does it come? How is the outcome on video? Does it look, would you be able to show and say, look, see Tom, see I push, like do you, or how does it look?
so the way it looks to me is like I can move inside or begin to move inside with a little bit more sort of purpose earlier in the turn. And particularly on the GS ski, so on the 23 meter was the one I was using yesterday. And so I feel like I just have a bit more ability when I'm looking at those two turns to essentially like shape the arc sort of in a tighter radius, if that makes sense. Now, I mean, if you're increasing edge angle, you're going to be bending the ski, you're going to be tightening the radius, but it's just, I guess, the sort of emphatic nature that I was able to do it in those two turns. It, you know, but connecting to the outside ski is not a new groundbreaking thing by any stretch. I mean, it's what you learn on day one. Once you've changed some direction, it's like, okay, this is the outside ski. It changes each turn. It's probably it will be your best friend, you know, stay with it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. It's just, I don't know, talking to Jack, it was interesting. I guess in my mind, what it inspired in me was, am I being too passive in my connection to the outside ski? Am I aligning to the outside ski, but not doing enough with it fast enough?
Yeah.
You know, and I remember, and again, this actually got me thinking about, and this is where the obsession bit comes in. I reminisced after this conversation with Jack about a conversation I had with Jonathan Ballou years ago. And Jonathan said, like, watching World Cup races, it was a bit of an off comment, but he said, he was like, oh, it's just a race who can get to the outside ski fastest. And it just, when I was in this conversation with Jack, it just got me thinking. I was like, Jonathan said that years ago. And I was like, right, okay, am I getting to the outside ski fast enough? And when I say getting there, I mean, am I doing anything with it quick enough?
Yeah.
And so that's where it's sort of, that's this connection to the outside for me. That I like the word
I think
connected.
It doesn't do it justice, does it? Like the way, like you hear yourself talking about it, but really, like in your mind, it's so much more elaborate, isn't it? Like there's these feelings and like, you know, like, and pictures in your mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's where it becomes really hard to teach and coach skiing, because here's you again, still working on what you teach a level one. Find the outside ski, you know, connect with it, maybe press on it a bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, years down the track, like, but it's really, it would be like at level one, a stick figure drawing of what's going on. Whereas this is like a Matisse, like you know, like the way you think about the outside ski, it's just, you have to put words to it, which really don't do it justice. It doesn't. It's just like, it's a shame.
Yeah, and it's like each step of the way, you know, I mean, on that is like the skills of skiing essentially don't change, you know, from a beginner skier all the way to what you and I are trying to do on snow. It's all the same. It's just, you know, the timing changes, right? Like when you're making a wedge turn, you balance on the outside ski later. You know, now I'm trying to, you know, balance on it, you know, as early
upside
as I can.
Down in a way.
Like trying to balance on it upside down. And so, yeah, it's just that situation changes as your goals and your intentions and, you know, your performance threshold changes as you go through your, you know, as you get better and better at skiing, you know. And I remember,
go ahead.
I was just to finish this point off, actually, I was just going to say, at the beginning of this last New Zealand season, I was privileged enough to be able to meet Alice in person and actually like have a couple of like a good conversation with her. And being the ski nerd I had to ask her about when it changed for her this last season. So at the beginning of this like last World Cup season, she wasn't performing as she can. I mean, I think Schifrin has said that when she's on, Alice has the fastest GS turn in the world. So I mean, Alice Robinson's ceiling is number one in the world in GS. That's literally where she can get to. And she wasn't quite performing that way. And I said, so, what changed for you? Like, was it technical? What was going on? And she just said to me, she was like, I was able to generate pressure earlier, and I was able to ski my line through the course. And I was like, right. And then she elaborated on it a little bit, and she was essentially just saying the same thing. She was like, I'm working the outside ski through the path I want it to take earlier in the turn. And she was like, that's what clicked for me. She was like, I got a feeling of basically being more round, as she calls it. Her line is a round line. That's what she says she likes to do. So she said she doesn't have the touch of like going at the gate, feathering it, hitting the edge, and then getting off, as maybe a Bassino does, someone like that. She said, Alice is like, I'm more powerful and I'm rounder. When I get to go round and I can generate this pressure or this feeling of pressure earlier through the outside ski, she's like, then I'm feeling good. And that's what she said clicked. And it's pretty much the same. She's on a totally different level than I am, but it's essentially the same thing as what I'm talking about now with connected.
Same part of the turn that's really key to success of the rest of it. So okay, awesome. That's really interesting. Now we get to Richie Berger, and for people who don't know, absolute legend. He's, I don't know, how old is he now? Is he 60?
I think he's 50. No, he's 52. Yeah. I think Richie's 52.
52. Yep. But skis like a beast everywhere. What did you get from him other than like of the obvious inspiration? Like, I mean, this guy's getting better as he gets older almost.
Yeah. First time I skied with Richie and met Richie, I was in Niseko and we were in Japan, and Riley had organized a night training session for because in Niseko, for those who don't know, you can ski from 8:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night. They have floodlights on the whole front face of the mountain. And so Riley had organized, this is in March, so coming to the end of the Japanese season in sort of mid-March. The snow starting to go into a spring cycle, and Riley had organized this night session. I think I was there, Paulie, Riley, Benji, Cass, just sort of like the crew that we had, the tech crew that we had there. And it was like coral reef, just really hideous snow. And we got to some bumps, and Richie he top to bottom, he just went from top to bottom. Didn't, no mistakes made, nothing. And, I remember just like watching that, and I'm like, right, okay, all right, okay. This is, you're watching a true master here. And so I sort of that training session, I skied, trying to get better, but really I was just there watching and listening. Yeah. And I remember he took us up to Super Ridge, which is just this outside part of the front face, and he went down, and he made it look like he was skiing powder, like butter. It was just like just so graceful, so just precise. Then Riley went down, and you were like, oh yeah. And then Paul went down, you're like, oh yeah. And I think everyone else fell over on the way down. Because it was just like, you'd land in it and you would just punch through like, I don't know, a layer sort of this deep of refrozen spring snow, and you'd punch through into like that corn stuff. And it was just, it was brutal snow, and just watching him and then Riley and Paul go down. And so for sure, that was my first experience with him. And just listening to what he was talking about, a lot of the technique was, he said he likes when skiing looks easy. So he's trying to make skiing look easy. That was his sort of message of the night, was good skiing is easy skiing, but while going fast. And the technical concepts I got from that evening, again, weren't anything overly groundbreaking. It was more just trying to go from full line to full line, and being disciplined, I think, really is what he was talking about, is just being disciplined with the body from these two sort of like pressure phases to pressure phase, particularly in that snow. And then went away with that concept. And then we arranged another training session with him that spring in Kitzsteinhorn, so on the glacier in Austria. So that was Riley, Lena, Harry, and Anina, and myself. And the purpose of that was to ski bumps. And I have a video somewhere on my hard drive of, he was talking to us just all about a variety of lines. And one of them was like trough hopping. And I remember, I have a video somewhere of him going on this zipper line on a pretty steep red run. And he hopped every single trough down. And I'm standing at the bottom and I'm just like, how, like, what are you doing, man? Like, how is this? I mean, it was just faster and faster and faster. And then I think the last couple of turns, he just took it back in, I think going a bit too fast to keep hopping. So I remember on that session, or like on the 3 days we had him, I think we had him for 3 days. It was like a history lesson in skiing. It was, and at that point, you know, the door that opened for me then was essentially what it could be. It was like a look at, and I'm not saying I'm going to be Richie Berger. I mean, that's, you know, impossible. But it was just a look at, like, you know, like what an ideal career would be in a sense. You know, I mean, the man's like, at this point now, he was 50 when I skied with him. So, you know, 50 years old and still head and shoulders above.
Showing up these young guys.
Yeah. And so it was, you know, for me, it was like, at that point, it was like an opening a door of like, okay, like this is what you could, you know, this is what you could be doing, you know, carrying on a career. Like could be the future of the career, right? It's sort of being someone like that. So it was more inspirational, but through a future, sort of like a futuristic.
I get. Because this guy is like, doing it still at such a high level, showing you things that, you know, like the trough skipping thing, and not just like let's skip 3 troughs and stop. It's like incredibly, you know, well above, you know.
And one of the best things that we got from that was he literally just had us in the zipper line, basic parallel turns around the zipper. So you don't go in the hole, you don't even go into it at all. You just do like a short basic parallel turn over the bridge and around. And it's really hard. It's really hard, particularly, you know, if the snow's not ideal.
Yeah, because ski catches, right? It's very hard.
So you've got to be so precise with where your feet are and the timing of your balance and weight change to the outside ski and how much you steer the ski, how much you edge the ski. So it's a real precision. And that's, you know, that was part of it. It was like, if I was looking at him and the inspiration I got was like being precise and exact with what you're doing, and just enough gives you the ability to have longevity. And then if you're operating at a high level for the amount of years that he's been doing it at, you know, there might be opportunities down the line to build, you know, a sort of working repertoire like he does. You know, like I would love you know, future me in this industry to have an opportunity for a group of young instructors to be like, oh, let's, you know, book Josh for, you know, a couple of weeks to do a bumps camp like it happened in Kitzsteinhorn. You know, I think what I got from Richie was, you know, if you hold yourself to this incredibly high standard and you're always exact in what you want and in your own performance, and you're consistent for all of these years, you're just consistently doing it at that level, then that's where you could be later on in life. I think that's what I got from him. And he's a true professional, and a really, really just incredible advocate for a professional ski instructor, like what a professional ski instructor is. I mean, he really is.
Hey, so on the bit techie skiing side, what did you get from, what was he trying to do with the trough skipping? So because that's him, pretty brutal, right? Like you're basically colliding into a bump, into like you're not, you're trying to take it head on. What did you get from it? Or what was the intention?
So the intent, it was the context of it was different lines for different situations. So we ran through, I mean, so round that you're on the outside of it. So like safety checking. So like in the bump, like where can you safely scrub a lot of speed? Trough hopping. Then there was the round line, direct line. Gosh, I think there was one more. There was sort of like, I call it a round direct line, but essentially it's like in between around and straight. There's like that middle. Now Takowski's that line quite a lot. And so so it was all, the context was, it was like he was showing us all of the lines you could possibly do to make sure that you're
prepared.
You're prepared, and you're demonstrating a consistent amount of performance the whole way. Like you're not getting, when I say performance, I don't mean ski performance. I just mean that you're not getting blown up out of the bump. So he was saying, like, if you're going too fast, like if you've hit a big wall and you get a bit back, he's like, you have to then hop the next one. So he was like, you then hop that next one. Now you're back on your feet. You might be going a bit too quick into this next bump. Here's the safe place where you can control your speed. Then you take it into a couple round ones. Then you go direct again. But essentially you're maintaining your descent and you're demonstrating great skiing, even though things to you feel a bit off and you're having to change lines. So that was the context behind that. And then with Richie we did a bunch of we did a lot of exercises, wanting to know sort of what, like how he trains himself when it comes to drills. One of the big ones he does is in the morning, and I do this every now and again. Don't let your poles touch the ground when you're warming up. Your first like 2 runs of the day, like don't let your poles touch the ground at all. Don't pole plant, just discipline there. So when you move inside, your inside pole doesn't touch.
And it's like skiing with no poles, basically, almost.
Pretty much. It's just skiing with no poles, but you have them there. And so that's one of his warm-up exercises. And then we got into like sit down hockey stops. I thought was really fun. I'd never seen that before. I've sort of taken that on, and I love that exercise. As a way to move inside, but doing it in a really slow way. Like a really slow and safe way. You don't have to go fast, but you get a feeling for moving inside. And then also you feel the alignment, because sometimes people like come in and sit back, in a sit down hockey stop, and he's like, no, this is bad. You have hip counter and you're behind the center of your feet. So it teaches people that, I think honestly, one of the biggest feelings that skiers have to get when they're trying to take their skiing to the next level, particularly if they want more performance out of the ski, is to work the ski, like to move the ski through the arc, to move it forward through the arc, but at the same time, their body or their center of mass has to move with that ski as it comes through, you know? So it's like, yeah. So I think that's one of the big, and that's something that we got from Richie, and he showed us that in the sit down hockey stop. You know, so yeah, a bunch of, it was a really great 3 days.
Yeah. I think like he and Riley in particular are drill people. Like let the drills do the teaching. And I think probably the most consistent way a skier could get better is drills, right? Like get good at all these different drills. And yeah, I think a lot of people skip that. They just don't want to do the time.
Yeah. And I remember when I was training for my Basie level 2, and this stuck with me, or has stuck me all the way through. The trainer I had, his name was Rupert Tilsley, a Basie guy. And he said, at this point, I was quite into freestyle skiing. So I had quite baggy clothing. And he said to me, he was like, I can't see what your legs are doing. Your pants are too baggy. You have to exaggerate the movement. You have to exaggerate the drill. And I did it, and I kept doing it because he kept telling me to exaggerate it. And my skiing changed, funnily enough. And yeah, funnily enough. And so that, I think that's one of the things, is like doing an exercise, but in the purpose of the exercise is essentially to break down and isolate a movement pattern that impacts the ski, right, for a certain performance. And so you exaggerate it and you repeat it, and then over time it builds in, and you don't have to do the exercise.
Yeah, because you get that feeling. You just need that feeling, right? And I think people, they do the same crap inside of a drill, even though it's might be to try and help it, but they're feeling the same feelings. And like to Rupert's thing, like keep doing it. It's kind of probably lucky you had baggy pants in a way. It was like
he was like,
forced,
you couldn't see it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Josh, we're coming up on a pretty good amount of time here, and so maybe we should wrap it up. But I've really enjoyed chatting with you again. I feel like these podcasts are cool. Like this is probably a very normal conversation. Like we catch up in New Zealand. I don't think it would be very different, over a pint of beer. Like we're obsessed with it. Hopefully people have enjoyed that, and I think there's a ton of stuff in there. I've been really wanting to chat with you because of like, if I had a visual like artist's impression of you, it would be you skiing with like all these different, like part of you would be Japanese, part of you would be French Canadian, part of you would be Australian, it's just such a cool melding, because you're not just looking for one source. You keep exploring, and I think it shows up in your skiing, man. Your skiing is incredible. So keep it up. On that, if people this season keen to get skiing with you in Italy, what would a week, now you can run your thing. You're not running it under as SIA or under anyone else's thing. It's like your program. How do you give us a quick rundown of like what you would do with people?
Well, I mean, firstly, I'd just really want to connect with people, get to know them, make sure that we're all on the same page about what we want out of our skiing, and then try to, inspire them through my ability to explain skiing and demonstrate skiing, and help people overcome whatever barriers they might have to reach that next level in performance. I think that's something that I've got all throughout all of the stepping stones or doors that have been opened for me, as we've talked about here, is just I have like an open mind to skiing, and it doesn't necessarily matter the way you look, but there are some sort of crucial points in the turn where your physics and biomechanics dictate what you need to be doing. And essentially, a week with me is understanding those truths. So the physics of how the ski works and the biomechanics of how the body needs to align to handle force. And then once we understand those truths, we're on the same page about them, then it's just learning through experience and trying to sort of overcome hurdles of performance, you know.
Nice, man. I would sign up if I could get over there easy. I'd like, after this, you've inspired me. I would just be like, right, just give me the stepping stones, drills, all the key, you know, bits that helped you, and I'd be like soaking that up. Yeah, so cool. So thanks so much, Josh. If people want to get in touch and actually do that, where should they go?
I mean, any social media. Yeah, any social media platform. So send me a message on Instagram, comment on YouTube, or we have a website. It's just www.theskico.it.
Theskico.it. Great.
Theskico.it.
Yeah. And then same. So Josh Duncan-Smith on Instagram.
Yeah, Josh Duncan-Smith on Instagram.
Awesome.
And
I'm sure people will find
just reach out. Yeah, hopefully, and hopefully we'll get to ski together in New Zealand this summer. Hopefully, New Zealand's open up a little bit more. Fingers crossed. Yeah, and we get to nerd out.
And the rest of the world can come to New Zealand too. Like, I mean, that's what you're probably saying, but yeah, I truly hope so too. It'll be cool to get the rookie academy happening full charge again. So, thanks again, Josh.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.